from the fear of death. Every living thing has it. The more fear pumping through the blood, the more power.
Made a worm.
Are your friends okay? You've opened a door that, once it's open, it can be hard to shut. I shouldn't have kept this from you. It was a mistake.
Liar. I know the truth, Mom.
I did what I was taught to do.
Winter eats fall, fall eats summer, summer eats spring, and spring eats winter.
What do you smell? I smell a man. You know why we're called Hellbenders? Because we're feared. Have you been in my dreams? You break my heart, I'll devour you.
If they want to believe in hell so badly, I'll give them hell.
I just want us to be people. It's not a gift, Izzy.
Then why was it given?
I'm not afraid of you, Izzy.
You will be.
Yes, welcome everyone to tonight's Night Shift podcast with Renee Ruin. Tonight we're talking about Hellbender, which is a film I think a lot of you have heard me talk about. It's something that I just blew my mind the first time I watched it, and it was completely not what I expected. And then I got my housemate to watch it, and he was mind blown as well. And then it kind of started a chain amongst everybody. So I'm so excited and happy to welcome Toby Poser, who he directed, wrote. Oh my God, I'm off it today. Wrote, starred, composed. What else did you do in this film?
Costumes.
Everything, basically. All of the things Toby did, along with her incredible family, which I've got to say is my dream family. So if you ever want to adopt an adult child, I'm hands up. And of course, I have with me two beautiful, lovely ladies who are horror fiends as much as me, which is the lovely Jenna Hayes, who is a TEDx talker and also ex-adult icon. And then we have Bonnie, who is the 90s blogger extraordinaire, showrunner of Hunter Killer, podcaster, screenwriter. What else is there? So much. Writer.
When
everything.
You get to be my age, it's like a never-ending list.
I know. And I'm just excited to have four incredible women together to talk about a film that I think is just so amazing and encapsulates a lot of things about feminine energy, mother-daughter dynamics, and also brings in everything that is kind of, women and other, and, bringing in that sense of natural magic and things like that, which all three of us other ladies are really into as well. So it was a culmination of everything we love. So firstly, one thing I wanted to say was you're also my hero, Toby, for one reason. You've been on Law and Order Criminal Intent, and Law and Order SVU. So you're basically like in my ranks of all time. I'm an addict beyond belief. So when I realized that, I was like, amazing. She's the trifecta. But of course, this isn't your first film. Your first film was in 2013. So I wanted to talk to you firstly, before we get into a bit more of a Q&A and talk about the film, was along the way, everything has been very underground, DIY aesthetic, and very much a part of your family. And I even noticed in Hellbender there's quite a few cameos in the credits of other Addams family members who played other roles as well.
Always.
Yeah. So was when you and John sort of got together, obviously dream parents, did you envisage that this would become a family affair? Obviously you have Zelda and Lulu as well, who are both in the film.
Yeah, I'll tell you how it started. And let me just say, I'm just crazy thrilled to be in your sphere tonight.
Oh,
It's really cool for me to be hanging with you three women, and I feel kind of humbled and tingly. So thanks.
that's our general vibe for this podcast. We always leave feeling extreme feminine love over here.
I love it, and I totally welcome it. I'll tell you real fast, how it happened. Was sort of on a dare, like a double dare. So in 2010, we were living in Los Angeles. The girls grew up in New York City, and I'd been living there for 20 years, and John was there too. But we went out there. We were in LA, and it's just I hit 40, and my acting roles just tanked. I mean, my acting career tanked, and I was kind of like moaning about it a lot. And John was like, why don't you just write your own movie? I was like, And then someone else in our neighborhood said, yeah, why don't you guys all make a movie? So we were like, fuck yeah, why wait for others to give us what we know we want? And so that summer we set out and we made our first film, Rumble Strips, which and the girls were 6 and 11 at the time, and we didn't know anything. And so, but there was something kind of beautiful about our ignorance. Like, ignorance was bliss, because we had no fear. We just, we only had everything to gain, and we just fell in love. So I think we learned pretty fast that this was something we were going to do as a family, and we never stopped. And even now our dynamic's a little different, with Zelda now just started college. Lulu's already been out of college a couple of years. And so now we'll be exploring again and see how that dynamic will work. But no, I think it will always be a family affair.
Yeah. And Zelda is a Gucci model as well now.
Yeah, she started modeling last year. It's almost a year ago. Halloween was like her first job last year for Gucci, and now she's done a bunch of other stuff, and she digs it because she loves photography. She's very artistic herself, so I think it's natural for her to, and she's a performer, so it kind of made sense that she would just kind of perform in front of the camera.
Yeah. And one thing I think we all agreed on as well was the soundtrack to this film is just so damn good. I pre-ordered it on vinyl, and I'm still waiting for it to come, but I'm in Australia, so it takes ages anyway. But I'm excited for when it gets here. But once I found it on Spotify, I was like, in love. I was like, yes, here it is. But it was so, I don't know, I'm sure, Bonnie, you probably know, like, very 90s nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that,
I was like, I think I need to start a chick band again.
Yeah, no, it reminded me of my time with my first band that was like an all-girl punk band, and then we did an all-girl, like, kind of punk indie. We were trying to be Veruca Salt, basically. We're like cross between like 7 Year Bitch, Veruca Salt, Bikini Kill, L7. And when I saw that, how much music and you two playing together was part of the movie and part of the showing of the relationship and the creative aesthetic between you two. And the fact that this happens in real life too makes me even more excited. I was just like, you never see that in movies. You don't, unless the movie is about a band, you know what I mean? You don't see that kind of aesthetic popping into a horror film, because most horror films with bands in them are about the band itself, not everything else. So I loved it. I thought it was great, but also the makeup. Oh my God.
Yeah, the makeup.
The makeup alone, I was like, oh, I might just try that and go to the grocery store and see what happens. Like, because I don't have a band anymore. So it's like I don't have an excuse to dress like I'm in a band.
I almost did it tonight with you guys, but I'm not. Since I'm not home, I almost did it.
I almost did it, but I didn't want to be that like weirdo fangirl who's like, like I didn't. I am a weirdo fangirl, but no, I love the music in this movie, and I think that's pivotal to showing the relationship and the growing relationship between the mother and daughter, and also the little bit of rebellion. And then the crown, bringing in the crown to crown the new queen. I thought that was interesting. So I loved it. It was great music.
Thank you. Yeah, we have so much fun. I mean, Hellbender, the band, preceded Hellbender the movie.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun to kind of explore it more within the movie. For me, the band sequences, and there are only 3. I kind of feel like we should make a sequel just to have more like band shit. But for me, the band stuff was another way of spell casting. You know, these 2 kind of chicks on a mountaintop, just kind of, you know, sending out their sonics. For me, was just another way of spell casting before Izzy even knows that she's supernatural. But thank you I'm glad you dig the music.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that's also another thing I'm sure we'll talk about in depth and ask you about are the dream sequences. Reminded me a lot of like 1960s, 70s psychedelics that would be Behind the Doors or other bands that love to have that like oil spill color stuff happening. But also the fade in, fade out. Like I was watching, I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of some of my favorite like music videos, but also musical performances that use psychedelics. So I was just enthralled in general by this movie, but I really loved specifically the dream sequences that did kind of add to that musical quality as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, they were really cool. And John actually, you know, it's funny. A lot of the psychedelic stuff that from the dream sequences or the book sequences came out of a mistake. You know, some of our best shit comes out of our making mistakes. It's just like you have to open yourself up to when you screw up, because sometimes it is the greatest gift in the world when you trip.
I love that. I love that.
And so like John, yeah, we were making a music video for the band, and John made a mistake in editing it, and it just looked like these 2 kind of things fused, and we were like, oh my God, that is so cool. And now he does it on purpose. He makes mistakes.
I love that. As someone who is like in the middle of 3 creative projects that I just feel kind of stuck on, that's very inspirational for me to hear, because keep going. I just got to keep going on them. So
yeah, absolutely.
Your story, by the way, of how you filmmake is also very, I think it's needed right now. Like I loved your interview on Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, and I loved how you really, because he's one of those advocates of don't wait for people to give you permission to make your film. Just go do it. Learn while you're doing it. And I think you guys epitomize the DIY aesthetic of, you started, you know, was it 6 films ago that you were just starting, you're just starting out. And so you were experimenting with each film. You get better with each film, but also like you said earlier, the mistakes become even cooler parts of the film. And I think, you know, if you, the way that not only you're doing it with your family and friends, but also it's a small group, you know, it's not like a huge entourage to film. So you can film guerrilla style, you can film just on a whim, on a cusp. And I love the DIY aspect of that. And I think a lot of filmmakers today, especially women, are a little afraid of jumping into that pool because they think they have to have a certain amount of people around them. They have to have permission. They have to have financial backing before they can start. And I just really love that you're like the spokesperson almost for women and also families to just go out there and film stuff. And then through editing, put stuff together, through story writing, through music, through costuming. It's just awe-inspiring. So I'm glad you exist, first of all, but I'm also glad that the way you film movies could inspire a whole new generation of filmmakers.
Well, that is just so cool. I mean, that we're done. Thank you. That was they made my year, I think. You know, it is really true. You just, I mean, I think some people say, oh, it's so flippant when you say, oh, just do it. You know, it sounds like a Nike ad, but it really is true. You don't need a lot. I mean, we generally have made all of our films with whatever we just have access to in our bank account. And if that's $5,000, then we make a movie that we can make for $5,000. In a way, it's just like you end up making a film that kind of comes from your molten core instead of thinking what you should be making, you know? And it's easier said than done, but it really is. When we've tried to stray from that, I think we failed. Like our third film, The Shoot, it's not terrible, but we're too big for our britches. and we bit off more than we could chew, and the girls weren't in the film, and it's just kind of a mean film. And you know what, as far as I'm concerned, we didn't succeed very well. And we were like, you know what, let's do what we can. That doesn't mean we're not going to try new shit. Like our new film we're working on, Where the Devil Roams, feels like a departure in many ways, because we're just trying new stuff. It's still totally got our DNA, but it's bigger in many ways. It's art.
It's bigger than Hellbender,
Right?
Like,
bigger cast, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Much bigger cast. But we're still, but you have to work that much harder, because we had to build like sets, and we've just worked our asses off. But and it feels kind of different, but it's the kind of thing I feel like, you know what, if you don't try new things, even at the risk of people saying, oh, I liked your other stuff better, you know, whatever, I like it when you shoot in the woods, or, you know, when you make up a mythology, then you're not going to grow. So yeah, basically that just goes back to, you just have to like do it. And then you'll keep getting better, and hopefully you enjoy it. You know, hopefully people are making films. Sometimes we meet people who are like so miserable making films, and it's like, I don't know why you do it. You know?
yeah, like, why?
I mean, obviously it's hard work, but you got to kind of love it too.
Yeah, 100%. And even I felt with, like, compared to your previous films, like Hellbender was just like kind of almost like a explosion of just like, oh my God, all of this energy and all this stuff you've been working up to. And it just, it's just such a flawlessly done film. And often when you're looking at DIY or underground films, sometimes it's, it's very obvious, and there's kind of this sort of lower quality, I hate that word, but where you can you feel like it's not all there. Whereas I felt like watching Hellbender, I was like, this is completely fleshed out. The effects are incredible. The cinematography is incredible. Like, just everything around it is truly flawless. And and that's what I don't have any other words other than flawless, because to me, I was just like, I wish I'd made this film or was a part of this, because it's such a well done like project from start to finish, and everything just seems to align. And I mean, maybe that's the dynamic of working with family as well, that you're able to trust in each other so much more than, say, just regular actors. Do you think that plays a part?
I think that is a big part of it, is that there's sort of this ambient energy of that fact that we are kind of, we do trust each other, and we're together, and we want to succeed together. We want to laugh together and feel pain together. So yeah, I think that is part of it. It's also, I'm just trying to, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think we, I think part of, I mean, I feel like it might seem like I'm full of shit saying this, but I feel like there's so much, and I don't know why I feel embarrassed to say it, because it's kind of wonderful and beautiful, but I feel like we love each other so much that that there's just an energy of like, whatever happens, we're going to be in this together, and we all our strengths and weaknesses, entwine beautifully. I mean, we have each other's back. And so I think that just might be like part of it, that we just want so very badly to make art. And part of our art is that we also are living it, because we literally will be like, I'll be making a mushroom soup and making sure everyone eats it, because they're getting a cold. And then 30 minutes later, we're like shooting, so there's something very organic. And I mean, it feels kind of like a spell in itself, making films, because you just put your intention out there, and it's like, I'm putting that magic out there, and be what it will. A lot of it just we just put it out there. I mean, it's interesting that you think it's things are flawless because a lot of it is very not planned out. It's
Oh.
just it just comes from our gut.
Which is how things, well, to me, imperfection is really perfection. So I see, like, you know, flaws generally end up being the most beautiful part about something.
I'm with
So
you.
yeah, so
it
I
makes
think
it more authentic. It makes it more authentic too, because like Deeper You Dig, I was like, oh, I want more of the mother and daughter, and then you blessed us with Hellblazer, which is, Hellbender, not Hellblazer.
Hellblazer, I'm like,
Right,
what's
that's totally different story. That's a whole other thing. No, Hellbender. When I saw Hellbender, I'm like, oh, I got my wish, because I love Deeper You Dig, and I wanted to see more of a mother-daughter scenario. Also, the fact that this movie, it has very little male anything. Like, they're either victims, or they just are passerbyers, or they are just like a side note, like at the pool, or they're asking you about you being the grandmother's nurse and in the shop. So there's not a lot of dudes in the film, so to speak. And I love that too, because, you know, sometimes when you see movies that are trying to please everyone, they just template it. And they're like, okay, we have to have this kind of love romance situation. We have to have a car chase type scene. We have to have this, we have to have that. And I think especially with female filmmakers in horror, there's much more artistic endeavors happening, but also the fact that you guys, all three of you, wrote, directed, filmed. I mean, it's hard enough to like co-direct or I co-write a lot of screenplays with people, and I'm not even related to them, and that's hard. I can imagine directing and filming and acting and writing. And I know you guys split some duties of costume and music and so forth, but it really is a family film because you did everything together.
Yeah, no, we do. We wear every hat. We have a fifth honorary member of our family, Trey Lindsay, who does our like special effects, and he's wonderful. He's just a yes guy, which is what you want, and he's just wonderful. But yeah, no, it really is. It's us, and it was fun getting to work with our older girl Lulu again.
Yeah,
she brings a total different energy. She's a great sunny counterpoint to Zelda's kind of, you know, quiet thing. But you know what you said, Bonnie, I just would say about women, you know, women and anyone who identifies as a woman, let me put it that way,
exactly.
is like their narratives are fucking awesome. I mean, if you look at someone who is a biological, who's born like with the womb, think of like their narrative of being born, developing reproductively. Like their narrative is so cool. They develop into a woman, and then, you know, eventually you even lose those reproductive, you know, abilities. You know, you have this wonderful natural just like arc and narrative just because of how we're like structured. It's really cool. I mean, we bleed. I mean, I get super into like blood, the idea of how women bleed. I think it's fucking fascinating. And especially the fact that women bleed and it's not pain. It's not because we've been stabbed. Like men bleed because they go to war, you know, and with their spears and their, you know, whatever. And you know, women, we like bleed all the time until we don't, you know. And it's like, and anyway, I think women are really cool. And so in Hellbender, it's not that we have anything against men. I mean, I married one and I love him for him, and I love him. But we just thought, this was focused upon women, and even Hellbenders, they're not even typical women, you know. I don't know. I think there are things that even through the context of Hellbenders, you could, even though they're supernatural creatures within like a female shell, there are interesting parallels I think you could make with human women. And part of that is you've got like Izzy's character, who's very meek and kind of quiet, you know, and in a way, when she finds her voice, it's almost like voice is synonymous with violence for a Hellbender. And so we thought these are really fun, interesting things to play with. Or like the beginning of the movie where you have these women who are hanging another woman, and or like the fear, the Hellbenders, you know, they thrive on it's not just the blood, they thrive on the fear in the blood. And we got that thinking about, well, historically, women have been maligned or called witches and burned because they're powerful and they're knowledgeable. And so we thought, well, fuck, if it's all about the fear that you have of women, then these hellbenders they're completely devised. Their power is predicated upon the fear that people have of them, you know. I'm blabbing on because I like talking about, like, you know, women in film and themes of.
That's what we're here for. So.
That's what we do. That's all this show is we just.
We're not going to get any complaints.
Yeah, I think this is the most I've shut up during one of these because I'm just listening.
I'm just like listening. I'm in like class right now.
Yeah, soaking up every word.
I did have actually a question for you, because this sort of is a very fascinating idea for me, of that one hellbender has to devour the other one to become a hellbender. And it reminded me a lot of, anthropologically speaking, of endocannibalism, which is something that happens in a lot of different tribes that have this kind of culture of they eat their own dead because they think that they will absorb the wisdom of their deceased family members. They don't kill them, but when they die,
Yep.
Part of the funeral rites is they eat their flesh, or in some cases in Native American and First Nation tribes, they'll just eat the bones as a protective thing, as a way to deal with grief, but also as an honor to them, because then it's always kept in the family. They're not just buried somewhere. It's like part of your core, part of your inside is your ancestors. And I know this is a different thing because you actually are devouring. By the way, my favorite line in this movie is, "If you break my heart, I will devour you." That is like, if anything, that should be a song. But also, it's one of like, it's kind of like, I brought you into this world, I could take you out kind of parent type things. But it's such a beautiful line, but it's also very true with hellbenders, is that their demise is their offspring becoming a woman, becoming an adult, and then they have to deal with their powers in their way. And it's just very interesting how the mother tries to, and the mother doesn't have a name, which I also thought was interesting, but the mother's protecting Izzy as much as she can and isolating her, which is, again, another great movie during COVID, because you're dealing with isolation. And I know you filmed this movie during COVID, which is awesome. But yeah, just the devouring part of it, I thought was very interesting. And just the bringing on the wisdom and taking on the power and taking this ancestral gift, even though Izzy initially doesn't think she thinks it's a gift, but the mom does not. It was just such a good display of mother-daughter relationships that may not be perfect, but they're essential for the daughter to become what she needs to become. And I love that so much.
That's cool. I think you're the first person who's ever mentioned that mother doesn't have a name. You know,
Yeah.
Izzy and Amber and the teenagers have names in the film, and we did that on purpose. But yeah, you know, the whole, like, we were really into the thematically the idea of cycles and circles and the Ouroboros, and, you know, like how this eats itself. I mean, that's just so much fun. And just like nature and the whole, like, spring eats winter, winter eats fall, fall eats summer, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we live in the wilderness and we're just surrounded by nature, and it's just brutal and beautiful in equal measure, because everything is just eating everything. You know, the moss, you know, devours the rocks, and the river devours the roads, and animals are eating animals. And so we just, I love food images. I love mouth imagery. I love things that you can just put in your mouth and, you know, take out. I mean, I just love orifices. I do. And so, in fact, I have to tell you next about another movie we're going to make. But like at first I really wanted the hellbenders to like have jaws that could unhinge to like flop on the ground, like, and they could eat dogs and like humans, you know, in like one gulp. But that was way beyond our budget. But let me tell you real fast, since we're talking about like consuming and, you know, eating things. So John had this idea years ago about men men who get violent, like, he's such a great guy. He's not a fan of like rape movies. He's like, I'm tired of women getting raped all the time and blah blah blah. And he's like, I'm gonna make a movie where men get raped. Well, rape isn't cool, whether you're a man or a woman or anything, obviously. But anyway, we kind of with the whole Roe v. Wade thing going down this year, we thought, well, let's revisit this. And so we are, and we're probably going to make it. And it's a film about men who are violated by this creature who has no interest in the women. It has only interest in men. And then suddenly their story really changes, where they're like, well, we talk about bodily autonomy. Well, I don't want this creature inside of me, and it's called Hellhole.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
And it just loves orifices, but only only how many?
I mean, so many.
I wanted to tie back to what Bonnie said, with the mother-daughter and, I'll devour you. There's that like real juxtaposition then when we see the mother incredibly vulnerable and she thinks her time has come, and Izzy is, standing sort of there, and that moment is so emotional, where the mother realizes that this might be it. And, you're kind of pleading like, I'm not ready. And like, but I also love the cheeky kind of rebellious tongue in cheek of Izzy just being like, don't worry, I love you. I'm going to the shops. What do you need? Bass strings. Yeah. It's just so like blasé and chill, but also really emotional at the same time. I think it comes back to that relationship at the beginning of the film. There's still that kind of like the non-Hellbender of Izzy, that relationship. And then there's the amalgamation now that she has become one. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think, that scene, like, I found really emotional, and I kind of it stuck with me, especially when you're looking in, down into the deep hole. You can't really figure out what it is. It's this kind of mushy, almost like inside I felt like it was a really scary inside scope of a uterus. Like the squishy like cells and the way it kind of looked, but with some abnormalities obviously, but like that's how it kind of felt like. And you're looking in there and you're kind of trying to figure that out, and then realizing what exactly is going on there. And that I just wanted to say that scene for me was something that like really stuck with me afterwards, because I love that, like, again, coming back to that relationship, but also finally seeing that vulnerability with the mother.
That's cool. That actually came about spontaneously. We weren't sure. We just didn't know how to end it. We knew we wanted Izzy. I kind of like to think of that tube she goes through, that tunnel, as kind of a reverse umbilical cord, like kind of going.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's some kind of uterine like it felt like it was inside. Yeah.
And yes, she's got to kind of go, back, like almost like through. Yeah, it could be like a birth canal, or that she's basically going, and the mother has to crawl through it, almost like to go back to her roots as a Hellbender. She's a Hellbender, whether she wants to be or not. But then the line about bass strings and everything, that just, we came up with that on the spot, and it was just a nice circle to the beginning when the mother won't let her go to town, and she's like, I need drumsticks, and so now Izzy's the one with the power, and she's like, I'm going to town. You need anything?
Yeah. It really shows the balance that now it's the scales have tipped.
Yeah, you're right.
I just wanted to say too, I love the teaching moments between the mother and Izzy, where she's teaching her the magic, like with the stick. She's explaining things. That she's surprised when Izzy has figured out how to open that room with the key through the hand, and she's seen the book. And it's just interesting to see that dynamic of teaching, especially like we don't know the history of the mother Hellbender. We don't know how her mother taught her magic. Like, what was the age that happened? And like, by the way, I'm not pressuring you for a prequel, but I wouldn't say it would be. I wouldn't say it would not be taken lovely. I would. Hint,
No
hint,
one's ever said it before. That's brilliant.
yeah, I mean, the more I watch it, and like I said before, before this interview started, I watch it regularly because I know every time I watch it, I find something that I didn't notice before. And that was one of the things, and I'm also a writer, so I'm always thinking of, oh, what's this character's motivation, but also what's their history. And I was so intrigued by the mom because I was like, you know, in mother-daughter relationships, if you have a mom that's hard to live with, my mom's bipolar. And so that's a whole other kind of mom you have to deal with as opposed to like the quote unquote normal mom. And so I had a different relationship with her. I ended up not having kids because of that relationship, but also I just didn't know what kind of mother I would be, and maybe I was more too chicken or whatever. But I will say though, a lot of daughters don't want to become their mothers. They want to do something different. And it doesn't mean they hate their moms or whatever. It just means they want to take their gifts, their history, their life into a different way. And I started to see that in Izzy because, you know, she's so docile and so perfect daughter almost at the beginning and just wants to please her mom, but also you just have an equal, like really friendly relationship. But then when she starts to realize she has a magic background and that her mom is much older than she thought, and her mom is much more supernatural than she thought, you start to see this rebellion, which happens to teenage girls all the time, but it's a rebellion of taking their own power and basically saying, I'm going to be a bit different. I'm going to do my own spin on this. And I love that. I love that you portrayed that growth, especially at 16, which is such a pivotal age for a girl because, you know, sometimes that's when they may be more sexually active before that. But because she's so isolated, I associated a lot of the magic, especially the blood magic, with losing your virginity or having sex. So I don't know. It's just one of those movies. Again, every time I watch it, I'm like, ooh, what's the history of that mom? Or ooh, what's that?
I mean, I would love to see a sequel that would be, you know, like where the mother talks about how her mother like ate a whole town.
I know.
I want to see that. Like,
the pressure is on now.
I love that the mom felt guilty. The mom felt guilty about the whole town being devoured.
I love that because it's like that's a whole other story arc.
Her mom ate all her friends.
Yeah.
That's why Izzy doesn't have any friends. Maybe the mother worries, you know.
Well, that's what she asked. That's what she asked when Izzy comes home and says
how are your friends?
And then the first thing mom says is, Are
your friends okay?
I know.
And I don't know whether was it sort of was it Zelda as well, or you know, I don't know how it kind of came into play, but I love the way that you explore, you know, growing as a teenager, because obviously Zelda was 16 at the time this was filmed. So it's not like regular films where we put 23 5-year-olds in as 16-year-olds. Like you know, she's actually 16. And I love the way that you kind of toying with the like the awkwardness and the figuring out, and because she is meek and she comes across that group, and you know, obviously there's this like kind of I don't know whether I picked up necessarily, and it was once something I wanted to pick your brain about, is the relationship there when she, you know, she does get there and she meets, sorry, I've completely forgotten the name, but of course her sister Lulu. That relationship rang really true for me when I remember when I was 13 and met like my first cool girl, you know, and like that kind of like, you know, ooh about it, and it kind of it just encapsulated it so well, those feelings, and also like of having like a best friend, but then also, you know, you've got the element there where Izzy's kind of not sure where she's going, like there's that kind of lesbian element and we're not sure if she actually feels that way or she's just not sure how to express her feelings because she's never been in this situation before. And then that kind of also that feeling of rejection, which is, you know, completely devastating at that age as well. which is, eventually we see what happens, to that character later, that, it carried on, and it's something that you kind of don't forget when something like that happens to you during that really, I guess, vulnerable like time when you're growing up. Was that something that kind of Zelda had a bit in hand in, or was something that you all kind of worked together? It just seemed to come out like quite easily.
Yeah, I think we all worked together on it. I mean, Lulu as a big sister really is. She's got a mouth of a sailor, and she's super. She's very comfortable with her body and her sexuality, and I mean, in general, our family, we're extremely open about. We don't have many secrets, and so I think it felt. Yeah, I think we all kind of put those scenes together, also kind of on the spot. I mean, we had some things we wanted to nail, but I couldn't write something better than what Lulu could say on her own. And then because of COVID as well, like Lulu, she had her own kind of pod. We only had certain times with Lulu. So because of COVID, and this was pre-vaccine, so we were extremely cautious. So like there's that scene when Izzy moves the chair over and she says, "I can't get close to people." And Amber says, "No, we can't."
That's
and it was
my favorite line of the whole movie.
They meant it.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of us can.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, baby, we all can.
My favorite. It was just spoke to my heart.
Yeah, and everyone wants to get close. Like Amber breaks my heart because she's this kind of girl. You learn she doesn't live in that fancy house with a city. She's like, I live a mile down the road and it's not very nice. And she looks so lonely to me. I feel bad for Amber. And what happens to her is pretty tragic. That scene. Yeah, I find adolescence so poignant. I mean, I think if I wrote novels, I would probably write them about adolescence because it's just such a tenuous, tender time. But you're also like finding your strengths. But to find your strengths, you have to go through a lot of fires. You have to get burned a lot. And and so and so for Izzy, who's an adolescent, and Amber, who's an older one, I found something so poignant and vulnerable, and yet, but also kind of like, gutsy too. They're also, Amber also, she's drinking beer and she's talking about STDs and, she's just so much fun. Yeah, those scenes were really cool, but they kind of break my heart too. Also,
I love
kids.
Yeah, I love the bit when the girls who's playing the drums absolutely horrendously, and then Izzy jumps on. Like that scene is so like, oh my god, I wish I could go back in time to high school and fucking do something like that. I was like, that is legit. Like
I was that girl. I was that girl that played drums badly. And then by my bandmates, because I could play guitar, but drum. So it's like I felt more for that other girl. But it was just like, to get shown up like that's so embarrassing.
It was just, but the music and the way it was shot, everything with that little scene, which seemed like, just an innocuous scene where she's coming into her own. It's like, this is the first time she's shown this to people that, it's not her mother. This is like, and she's seeing the reactions and how blown away they are. And it's like this, you can see it wash over her, this like amazing feeling of being seen and like, that she is otherworldly before she even knows she's got this other supernatural stuff going on.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. People don't really talk about the kids scenes, and I really like them. That scene at the pool. There's two scenes at the pool. I love the scene where the first scene where they've been hanging out in the pool and it's kind of calmed down, and Zelda's just sitting in the pool, just kind of ogling, completely like infatuated with this new friend who's sort of suntanning, and she steals the barrettes. For me, that might be one of my favorite things in the movie is when she steals the barrettes and then she goes home and kind of puts
Tries
it in.
to put it
And
on.
Zelda's, she's got such wonderful body language, Zelda, and she kind of puts it in and sort of looks at it.
That really spoke to me because I remember when I first met my cool girl ever. I was a farm kid, so like I was almost homeschooled in a way. Our schools were really small. So when we moved to Colorado and I got to a bigger school, bigger town, I met my first cool girl, and she would make these things. This is such an 80s thing, but she would take roach clips, for pot, and she'd make hair clips out of them, and there'd be entwined strips with feathers. And I remember she put one down once. It wasn't by a pool, but it was like something in the class, or she dropped it. And instead of giving it back to her, I took that and I would wear it at home, never in front of her. I would wear it at home. Like, I didn't build a shrine, but I was close to it. And I just saw that moment. I'm like, girls do that. So if you were like an introvert in the beginning, or if you're not around a lot of other kids your age, and you gravitate towards this like gregarious, comfortable in her own skin, cool girl, if she drops anything, you're going to take it, whether it's a roach clip or a guitar pick or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So just like that moment spoke to me. I was like, oh my God, I've done that.
That's so great. Oh, I love that.
And it's also kind of foreshadowing of like how she's going to be witchy, because she's collecting this thing that may be used in some sort of ritual or spell in the future, and it's just it's like how serial killers kind of collect something of the people that they are enamored with or whatever, I loved it. It was very creepy.
Oh, yeah. So right. I mean, that is so neat. I love that. I'm going to steal that. If you don't mind.
Also, like when her character, when Izzy gives back the hair clip, and she thinks she's going to be praised for keeping it, or at least thanked. And you have, Amber saying, oh, it's so creepy. Like, she just has the opposite reaction that Izzy thinks she's going to have. And then she gets rejected by her. It's just such a heartbreaking moment, because she doesn't understand that dynamic and that social cue, that's not a cool thing to do, to take something from someone, keep it forever, and then give it back to them. Like,
And tell them I stole it, like on this day.
Yeah. It's so heartbreaking and dangerous, which is what's so neat. It's heartbreaking, but now Izzy's not just going to take that shit.
Yeah. Because I feel like that was the teetering moment, right? Like, because it was like, here she was extending a hand, and it almost looked like, hey, they're going to be mates again, like, and then it was like, oh, damn it, you had to bring up the barrettes.
I know.
Yeah. Another thing too, that, we love to kind of take things that happen in the real world and kind of squeeze them through the supernatural lens. And for me, it was important to show, like, parents can be really hypocritical. A lot of parents would be like, don't drink and do drugs, but they're drinking all the time in front of their kids. They did lots of drugs growing up. And so, they can be real hypocrites. And mother is a hypocrite too, because not only is she still going out and noshing on deer now and then, but she's also like taking nips of like her maggots. And the scene where she holds the maggot in this little china thing, that's actually where I used to stash my weed back in the days. It's the exact same thing. And I would sneak off, and sneak a little toke, and and so so that was really important to show. She's just like many other parents, and parents, parents are fallible, but and so we just wanted to show that, but that through these supernatural people, just to show, like, you're human. It's hard to be, life is hard, whether you're human or a hellbender. You got to do what you got to do. And mother has to go take a nip off of her maggots now and then.
Yeah. I love those scenes though. I love the like the psychedelic one. She eats the caterpillar and she just gets so twisted. It's the visuals, and I think just the cinematography, it was just stunning. Like, I think that I watched it twice now. And I think that after the second time, I was just struck by how, like, okay, you guys are like this close-knit, small, kind of production, but the visuals were just so stunning and high-end looking, like the shot of the forest and everything. And I was just like, wow, this is just beautiful. Like the other thing that I was obsessed with, and I know it's such a small detail, was the plates of food that were that was, oh, I'm a foodie and I love going to places with the fancy looking plates, and it was just so beautiful and pristine. And I loved in the one shot, they talk about eating the humans, and then and how you get the power from eating the humans, and then you show the plate that has like these raspberry thorn or whatever, and it's like a bloody finger, and then she like eats it, but then the shot of the plate after that is it's clean and that's gone. And so the symbolism of having that there and then having it gone, I was just like, what is that? What? I was so obsessed with the plate, and I was like, I'm probably the only person that's obsessed with these.
Oh no, I was obsessed with it too, because I was reminded of this chef, and I can't remember his name. He's either Swedish or Danish or Finlandish, whatever. So his main thing is he does really
getting words all right tonight.
I don't know. He's a chef that does bougie meals by foraging whatever's out in the wild, and then he makes this artwork on a plate. And this is all for people who are very wealthy, who will spend $500 on a little thing, but it's more of the artwork than and they all are edible. It's like edible flowers and all that. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that totally reminds me of that chef. But also it's interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, Toby, you are a vegan, but John is a carnivore. So how did that, did you kind of put your vegan sensibility in that? But then also obviously the Hellbenders, not vegan 100% because they're Hellbenders.
Like I actually thought, this stuff does look kind of good, but although like pine cones are really hard to chew on.
Yeah, they are.
We wanted, we thought that veganism, but hardcore veganism, like we should take it further, which just shows even more how like the mother is just starving her nature, her own nature and her daughters by going so hardcore veganism that is just pine cones and raspberry thorns and moss and lichen and whatnot. And then the girl, I'm the only vegetarian in the house.
I am. I'm a vegetarian aspiring vegan. I eat eggs once a week and I'll have a pizza once a week. But other than that, I don't eat meat. So
yeah, and I'm the exact opposite. I come from a hunting family, so I'm hardcore carnivore. I don't hunt myself, but that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I know that the deer carcass was just something you came across, and you're like, we have to film this. We have to put it in the film, which I love. I love that you just serendipitously found, like you were just walking through the goods, like, put it in the film, which I love. I love that so much that you're just like ready to go, and whatever you see in the film, like whatever you see in the forest on your travels, because I believe you guys were on like an RV trip around America while you were filming, so that's why the dream sequences have bits from Maine and bits from Arizona desert and bits from forests of different, California, Colorado, whatever. And it's just amazing to me that you like everything we see, if it's useful, we'll film it and then see where
it's very convenient when you're like a little team of, in this case, usually 3 of us, because we don't have any fancy equipment. We have a camera that's good and functional, but by no means expensive, and but it's super crucial for us that everything looks good, like the plate, Jenna. I mean, like we had to look like it could be the cover of Gourmet magazine. But everything, like, in what we shoot, and because we don't have lighting, we use natural light. That's just, and natural light is so beautiful. It does all the heavy lifting for us. And
natural light just brings out people so much more too. Like whenever I would do photos and photography stuff, I always would be like, can we do it in natural light? Like I'd prefer natural light over any kind of artificial. It just brings everything out of the person.
Yeah, I directed and produced 13 adult films for my company, and I shot everything with natural light. I didn't use filler lights, anything like that. And I just, I think it's much nicer to go with. People are like, oh, it's so less professional and you don't get that professional look. And I'm like, no, I actually think it looks better.
Do you think your actors felt like better too? in the process? Do you think that it enhanced their?
It has much more of a natural atmosphere for the actors to be in, rather than having, you know, a sea light here and you've got like a keynote here. Like,
yeah. And they're not inhibited by the space either, like by having all these lights and blah rigged up everywhere. I mean, this is just another example of like, which is really inspiring, about how you're making this sound, and not in a bad way, but you're making this sound like it's something we can go and do. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. Should I go start my own horror movies now?
Yes, please. I mean, I feel the same way as a writer of screenplays and movies. I don't personally film them, but then now I'm thinking, why don't I? Why don't I just?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I've got things to think
I
about.
have a nice camera. I have a nice, like, you know, and it's just.
And you're an artist.
Yeah, and I think anyone can. If you believe in the project, if you believe in your art, and you just have a fearlessness about it, and don't be self-conscious, just go out and do it and see what happens. And that's why I love your film so much, and I love that your family all create this art, because you're showing, hey, just go do it. Just go do it. It's fine. And if you make mistakes, that could end up being the coolest thing in your movie. But just don't wait until you think you have permission or that you're ready. Just go and do it. Make mistakes, learn along the way. I love that. Idea.
And we're living in a time when technology is just there anyway. I mean, all of us have a cell phone, you know, pretty much. So, and they're all built with really great cameras these days. I mean, just today, John, we're in Telluride, Colorado for Telluride Horror Show, and there are these beautiful, like, brick buildings that look kind of old. And our film that we're editing now takes place in Depression era America. And so John was like, oh, take a picture of your phone of the, you know, of the stage that this movie was playing. Cause he's like, and because I have 4K on my phone. And I was like, and he can literally take that and put it in our little film, you know? And then he was out wandering the streets with our Canon 5D, shooting, you know, some of these old signs and everything. And it's like, oh my God, we're so lucky.
And does John does he do a lot of the editing in post?
It's all the editing. Yep.
Because that's where I need help. We need an editor.
Yeah. I love to watch him edit and give my 2 cents. But I don't know how to technically do it. And he does it now. He's grown so much as an editor, and he does the sound editing too. He does everything. And Zella's a good editor now too.
Yeah, I'm actually like, well, I'm not mind blown by it, because having 2 parents that are incredibly creative, it only makes sense to have children that are, you know, that are both so creative, all under the one roof. Like, you know, with, you know, she's co-writing horror films at 16, 15, you know. And you know, she's acting in them, you know, I mean, you know, then she's also got the band, you know, now she's modeling. Like, I'm just like, she's a sky, like, just the sky's the limit. And I mean, obviously that's a testament to you and John's parenting, that
thank you,
she's got that incredible view. I wish I had, you know, that kind of upbringing where it was just so, you know, go and do these things, because I think that's the roadblock, I think, for a lot of people, is they don't have that kind of environment where they're, you know, they've got their parents and their family members and extended all being rallying around them and being like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I mean, I think if I said I was going to do a horror movie, my dad would be right there. But aside from him, like, I think, you know, he'd be like, I want to be some kind of Freddy Krueger-esque thing or something.
Wolf Creek 3, maybe.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's
scary.
Australian. I mean, Australian horror films are some of my favorite genres. So I'd say go for it, Renee.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I've only seen like some of the horror movies coming out of Oz at the moment are amazing. There's some that have just dropped recently that are really good. Unfortunately, a lot of our horrors are based on true stories. With worrying.
Like
some crazy
horror spiders.
Oh my God. I just, before I forget, because I have all my notes again, you know, and I have like my pages of notes. And so I'm like, there's a few things I want to ask before.
You gotta go
for it.
So there is a shot that I was really impacted by, and I actually paused it and made lunch and like left it on this in the movie. And it's like a diagonal shot, and it's blue and black, and it's a figure walking up the hill, and then there's like a light post with a figure on top of the light post, and I cannot get this image out of my head, and I'm just wondering. I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough or something. I don't understand that shot, and it's in the middle of the film, and I'm just like, where does this tie in? What is it?
Oh, we'll tell you two cool things. First of all, so Izzy, basically, it's meant to be like a kind of a woman walking in town. Like basically she's been going to town on her own, and that's Izzy, you know, crouched kind of like a crow, you know, in you, so you kind of get the feeling like, oh, that's her dinner tonight. That was actually me walking.
Okay.
I was trying to walk like I was like trying to walk like an old woman. I'm like, this looks but we shot that on the road in the RV because we were on the RV for a lot of COVID. We just took off since Zelda was remote schooling anyway. And that was shot on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. And if you look closely in like the top, maybe right corner, you can see the Cascade Mountains in the back.
Isn't like Mount Rainier back there too? Like I feel like or am I getting my geography mixed up?
Yeah, if you look the other direction, I think
oh, okay.
You could see like Rainier. We love Rainier. Those were the Cascades, yeah.
And I researched that scene, by the way, because I also loved that scene so much. And some of the interviews that you guys were doing, and also just little factoids in the movie, that the fact that Zelda was kind of bored and doing like her own TikToks and stuff. And she came up with that idea when she was shooting TikToks, because originally she was going to be perching in the trees, but instead she thought, oh, wait, this lamppost thing is really cool, and brought it back to you guys and said, hey, let's do this. And I love that idea that she was just like, came across it, and then an epiphany of this would be a great shot.
While just doing some TikToks, which I love.
Oh yeah, watch the TikTok.
Sorry, 2022. She's doing some TikToks on the side, and then
I mean, and not to just talk about Zelda, but Lulu has an amazing Instagram because she is such a fearless traveler. Like I don't know how many countries she's been to, but it's so much fun to watch her in her Instagram show off what country she's in and having fun traveling.
Yeah, she lives in South Korea right now. And she's there for a whole year teaching English. She is just so cool. She was like,
she's such a fierce, like you can tell she's a fierce and like just a really, like, I would get along with her really well. I know that. Yeah, I'm just like she's got that bounce about her, which I just really love.
She'd love to be in on this conversation. So much, like she like surfs and she's like getting scuba diving certification. Wow. and she's like, I don't know anything about Asia. I'm gonna go live in South Korea. You know, she's she'll probably travel her whole life.
She's like a real life Pippi Longstocking. Like I just got that vibe off of her that she's just like, I'm just going to travel. I'm just going to do whatever. And I'm going to do whatever's interesting to me. And I love that personality and that vibe, because sometimes the older you get, the less that happens. You know, you start to think about responsibilities and adulting crap. And if you can keep that like wanderlust and excitement for travel and creativity, hold on to it for dear life, because I'm living vicariously through your daughter's Instagram.
She'll love to hear that. You know, she's actually now writing with us. Like she helped write Hellhole, what I was talking about before.
Yeah,
cool. He wrote the first draft for that because we're like, Lulu, we have this idea. Can you just do it? And she wrote a great draft, and then we you know, so that we collaborated with her on that, and now we're collaborating with her on another cool screenplay. So even from across the globe, we're getting to work with her, which is really fun.
That's awesome.
And we're gonna do something where she's because she's gonna be the star of this next one. We were just in Europe for a month, and we were so enamored of all the medieval castles and the rich history there, and we were like, we have got to shoot a medieval film. And it's this one. Lulu's gonna be the younger kind of witch warrior for my older witch. And it's going to be really and the music's going to be real like metal. And and
Love
Lou's this fierce warrior, and it's going to be all about like taking down the patriarchy, and it's
Yeah.
brutal and awesome, and I can't wait. And I think I'm going to be naked through most of it, and my like tits are gonna, I'm already got like loaded, but I'm gonna like load them even more.
Awesome.
So and people are gonna watch this witchy kind of creature that I'm gonna create, and I can't wait.
I love it.
So I'm loving this because it's like we're getting all these little like exciting new
I
projects.
know we got the scoop.
I'm just like, it just makes me really excited because there isn't a lot. I feel like there's quite a few different female directors that I really enjoy, but once I came across like Addams Family films, and I started looking in more and more, like I think just like your whole worldview kind of lines up with mine, and like I just fucking love the whole like get in there and do it ethos, and just like and the fact that you have such a beautiful, strong connection with the females in your family is something as well that like is just so like it's not embarrassing, like you said earlier, but it's heartwarming. It's like it's just really like amazing to have a group of women who are working together, collaborating and supporting each other with love, and just bringing projects together. And it's something that I think Jenna and Bonner, we've talked about like just doing this podcast, is that like we we just vibe and learn so much from each other, and just being in a situation with other women that get it, and that like just we all bring something out of each other, but we're all it's just like a love in every time we do one of these. And so
it feels like a sisterhood in a way.
Yeah, it is.
Or maybe we're a horror movie coven. Maybe that's the word.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys, because I've now kind of looked into all three of you, and you're all three fascinating and so creative and wonderful and cool and artistic and in your own ways. How the hell did you three connect?
Social media.
What's that?
That's a good question. I mean, I knew Renee from another film podcast that were three other guys. And Renee and I kept like, Renee, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, and I love the other podcast a lot. I was just on it last night talking about a film that wasn't horror. Actually it wasn't Zombieland, but I consider that a comedy. So anyway, but we would start giving each other knowing looks, because here's the thing with movie reviewers, and I'm professionally a movie reviewer. I've been reviewing movies as a journalist and a film critic for over 25 years. So I was just like, I prefer to see, when it comes to a movie that has a female-centric vibe, or it's about sisterhood or womanhood, or it's primarily created by women, I don't even look at the male reviewers' reviews. I only look at the women reviews, because to me, that is a voice that isn't always honored or hired by major news places, major magazines and stuff. So I go to YouTube and I go to podcasts and see what women are saying about these movies. So when Renee and I were both on a podcast about movie reviews, and we were on it multiple times, and I know we just kept looking at each other like, oh, they don't get it. And because of that, I think Renee started this and invited me to be on it, because we were just like, can we just do our own thing?
I was like, I need a female outlet, because everyone else on the other panel and is they're all male, and bless them, but they just don't get some stuff the same way. And and so that was actually kind of our late reunion, because we knew each other in the 90s when Bonnie was a big blogger, and we had a lot of mutual friends in film, and we were always crossing paths on the internet. So and then in a weird way, I was looking at this, and I sort of knew Jenna as an acquaintance, because I knew an ex-boyfriend of hers, and I used to also work in the porn industry behind the scenes. So I sort of knew like the kind of thing, and I followed. I was following Jenna, and then realized that Jenna was an amazing horror lover as well, and thought, well, this is someone who I think is just bloody amazing. Why not get her to come on? So, yeah, I just reached out and was like, I think you're amazing and stuff. I'd love to have you come on, and it was meant to be like a one-time thing, and then now I declared in the last podcast that no one else is coming on except for these two ladies and any special guests moving forward. So we kind of just that's how it kind of happened.
It's
But
officially our show now.
yeah.
it's also now.
But yeah, it's a lot of like weird coincidences and like intermingling and stuff, because I think the ex that I'm referring to was in skateboarding, and I was involved in all that kind of jazz, and he was a friend of a friend and did stuff. So it was like, I'd always seen.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
I'll clue you in. I'll clue you in. But everyone, like, I remember everyone talking about it, like, oh, he dates Jenna Hayes, la la la. And this is a very long time ago.
You're trying to figure out which guy this is, aren't you?
Yeah, I am too, because I'm like, oh, far out. What was his name? I know he did something in photography.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. If it was a musician in the 90s, I might have dated them.
I was just gonna say, I've been there, baby.
I mean, and that doesn't even count the women I dated. So I mean, we could be crossing paths, not even realizing it.
Speaking of musicians and music, though, there is a shot in the movie too I have to ask about, where it is it's a dark shot, and it's the frontal shot of the daughter, and then the mother is the side profile shot, and it reminds me so much of that Queen Bohemian, and I Queen. Yeah, and I felt like there's probably more like throwbacks to different rock stars and things in there that I feel like I might have missed or something. Because when I saw that, I was like, maybe I should go back and watch it and see if there's more that I missed. But instantly when I saw that, I was like, Queen. And I was like, I hope that was intentional.
It was also because we don't have like lights. We do have construction lights, because John does a lot of carpentry and stuff. And so that's just one construction light over my head. And it just does really cool things when you put that kind of very straight on, no nuance light above, because it gives you kind of that skull look like in the Queen cover. Yes, we totally wanted it to look like that. We use it in the Deep You Dig too, and like the seance scenes.
Yeah. So did you have, I mean, obviously Hellbender music became, that was before the film, but where did what was the influences for that?
For this, like, we listen to so much music, and the girls are real, like, music lovers, and they're always turning us on to cool shit. Like Lulu just introduced us to a great band called Slow Mosa, and they're so cool. And Zelda was really into like Billie Eilish and Courtney Barnett. She loves a lot, and
Australian, yes. I know Era is always like love. I love all the Australian drops. It's great.
We love her, and so John writes. He's just an amazing composer and musician and writer. So he would kind of listen to things the girls would like. I was just happy to like be kind of included and like back them up vocally back. But Zelda sings the leads, but then when Lulu's around, she'll sing too, and then I'm always around. So, and our three voices, you can tell we're kind of related. They kind of just have a certain sound together. So I think it's just like those were influences. Veruca Salt, for sure. Mm-hmm. People are always like, oh, you sound like Veruca Salt.
The makeup reminded me of L7.
And of course, the makeup. I projected like crazy on that because I was in a girl band at that time, and I got a lot of 7-Year Bitch kind of vibes, but also Demetria from L7. It's very interesting because Izzy, Zelda / Izzy, drums has a unique way of drumming, and it's kind of like Gina Shock mixed with Demetria mixed with Moon, because the way she uses her whole body. And you don't
Yeah,
see a lot of female
everything.
drummers use their whole body like that. And I was just like, that is such a cool drumming aesthetic. And the vibe is so like just hardcore, like gritty, but also, you know, putting all of your body into the instrument means you're putting all your soul into the music. And so the way she was drumming, I was just like, oh my God, this is reminding me of like the girl bands that I just love that were like not trying to be cute, not trying to be like photo ready. They're just gritty. They're just doing their shit, especially punk bands, like the Slits. You know, you see these bands and you're like, holy crap, they don't care if they're on key. They don't care if they're like have beautiful melodies that are radio or YouTube friendly. They just do whatever this guttural feeling. And that's what this movie is a guttural feeling of being a woman, because there's so many different levels of what you're going through. And I don't know, just the music was such a great, I don't want to say it was a side character. I think the music itself was a main character, but I just loved it so much. And I love the way she drums. So please pass it on. That I think such a cool drummer.
Because Bonnie, she hasn't been drummed. She's stopped.
Tell her to get back on it.
And I love her drum. I mean, she started when she was little and she was just a natural. Like I have videos of she and John were like gigging when she was 8 years old.
Oh, I love it.
And in like New York City at Otto's Shrunken Head, they like have she had a couple gigs and she's 8 years old, you know, and I really miss her drumming, but you know, you can't tell your kids what to do. Although I tried, I hit at it now and then.
Well, tell her she is a fan, because also I think like there's so many like up and coming girl bands like the Linda Lindas and you know younger girls, because I remember the Donnas when they started and they were teenagers.
Yep.
You start to see this like this new generation of really young female musicians that are in these all girl bands just doing whatever and saying what they need to say and you know bringing issues to the forefront. And I love that. I love that there's kind of a resurgence of Riot Girl, but it's their own version. And yeah, I just got such hardcore Riot Girl vibes, which basically warmed my Riot Girl heart when I watched this.
Yeah, same. Even the line in the film when you know, Lulu says, you look like a Kurt Cobain?
Cobain and a wet dog.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And even just like the way Zelda's hair was like throughout the film, I was like, that was me my whole teenage years. Like the long, like kind of stringy hair. Like I was totally that, like, you know, I was wearing corduroy and Nirvana shirts that were 5 times too big for me. Like, and you know, just to drown rap
Zelda today. Like, I think she like bought her first comb when she got to college.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I also like the fact that you're in the band because, you know, you see like Youth, Rebellion, whatever, and they're kind of the music, but the fact that the mom is like passing it on and also in the band just as hardcore as she is. And I'm an old punk rock lady, like I'm an elder punk. So I'm 50. And so seeing like older women my age or close to it rocking out with their daughters, it's just such a cool thing. And I love that you have that dynamic in the movie. So it's not just that she's in a band, but that you are both sharing this generational appreciation.
Oh, yeah. I'm 53. And, you know, I like, for me, it's really, really, really important that women like my age, my body type, you know, are represented, you know, it's just like, it's so fucking important for me. Like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, I want to have all kinds of women in our films. It's not like one is better than another, but it's really important for me that there are women over a certain age in our films. And I like acting, so often it's me, you know, and I'm there. But I'd like to work with more women, with more actresses. But yeah, that's just like, that's so crucial. It's really, and like in our film too, like it was also, we wanted in Hellbender, you know, if people have a zit, you see it, you know, we kind of just wanted to represent people in as raw form as we could. You know, that's really important.
That kind of the mother-daughter dynamic as well. Like there was one of the scenes that I really loved, which seemed like such a simple scene, was where both the mother and Izzy are sitting at the table, and they've both got a plate in front of them with a worm, and then the mother offers her worm
Yeah.
to Izzy because she clearly recognizes that Izzy, that's not enough. Like it's not enough for her, and so she knows that she shouldn't, but she also does, and it's like it's almost like that, the baby mother in the nest, like giving
regurgitating a worm.
yeah yeah
And also,
like,
there's
that scene was like really sweet, like
yeah,
it was,
I mean, yeah, there's so many sweet moments in this movie. So I know it's a horror movie. I know there's some scary moments. I know there's like, especially the special effects. Like I love the multiple teeth. I love the in and out of like the eye movement.
the hand key thing was so badass.
It was so good.
Like,
so good.
It just worked like so well. And like you were saying how you love orifices, like the scene where you guys, like, you eat a whole bunch of the maggots, and then like, you like and then like Izzy spews all over you, and then you laugh, and then you spew on her, and it's just like, that is just something that, like, it's something that families do, but I feel like, something not totally that, but families do gross shit together, like they do. And I think that, like, a lot of films, like, don't, they kind of make out that stuff doesn't really happen. And, like, we all know that in families some weird shit goes down, but, like, I just love that, like, that whole thing where it's just like, it was gross, and it was sort of, meant to be, but it was like a bonding experience, and it was super fun, and it was a way of bringing them together, even though afterwards the mother, says, I shouldn't have done it, but I did, like, kind of thing. And it's kind of cute that she's also teetering the edge of, like, wanting to kind of edge forward to give Izzy what she wants, but she's also, like, she's sort of excited and apprehensive at the same time.
Yeah. People often call Hellbender a coming of age film, but I feel it's the same for the mother too, because nobody stops growing. You're always coming of age. So I think it's a coming of age for the mother as well. Back to, like,
the whole the mother, like, it's got that amazing, thing going on there with Izzy's character. But I think, like you said, the mother's character is so integral, and she's kind of where everything is coming from and radiating around, and it's sort of we're seeing her learn and grow and change and adapt throughout this whole weird experience that is, she's never experienced it either. This is her first time, like, with her own little hellbender growing up, so it's like,
you're so right. And I don't know. I think I get really tired of films where, like, moms are so typical. It's like, and I think in many ways it's getting better. Like, often you'll see the men are home taking care of the kids, and the mothers are out working. But a lot of time it's just, we were looking at a script that we might do of someone else's, and there's like a mother and father character, and the mother just complains, and she's always nitpicking at the dad. And if I do this film, I'm going to ask them, can I reverse those roles? Because if you don't want to change it, I need to reverse them. The mom's going to be the one who, the dad can nitpick at the woman. I don't know. Yeah. And it's just, so of course I was like, well, if Izzy's going to rock out, I'm going to rock out,
Yeah.
I mean, and also, like, I don't know if you meant to do this, but also I think there's kind of some metaphors about menopause in there too, because you're passing the torch to this young woman who is just going in, starting to come into her own, but also you're leaving. So by her becoming a hellbender, you kind of signed your own death certificate too. Like, that is that is a way to look at the movie too. It's not that she's just being protective of Izzy, she's being protected of herself, because as soon as Izzy becomes a hellbender, she's gone. That's her time is up. There's no retirement fund for hellbenders. So it's also coming to terms with death, and coming to terms, like, you do mention the seasons, following the seasons and eating each other, but it's just, you have to come to terms with, if you're a Hellbender, you're not going to die of old age. You're going to die as soon as your daughter takes over. And that is a very interesting kind of supernatural way to think of menopause in a way, or even motherhood, or even death, because that is such a, not many people think of, I'm going to die as soon as my daughter comes into her own, you know, but it's just one of those things. I noticed it too, because I'm of that age of menopause. So I'm like, now I'm starting to look at movies in a different way. And so I just got some of that, a little twinge of it. But I don't know if you meant to have that or if I'm just projecting.
The like puking the blood thing, that's something that like I subconsciously knew exactly what we were doing or what I wanted to do. Because if you think about it, if Hellbenders are, if they're killed from being consumed, in a way they're like birthed through the mouth too. Like I thought of, instead of a vagina, the mouth is essentially like the vehicle for birth and death for a Hellbender, and that therefore menstruation would be like in their stomach, like their stomachs are like wombs. And so the puking of the blood is a kind of like menstrual thing, which I was like, when we were doing it, I love talking about this because nobody wants to talk about it.
We're like, menstrual blood, like whatever you got there, bring it.
I have to talk about, and so I'm going to talk about it now that I can. No, I think for me, there was a menstrual theme with that. But in our previous film, The Deeper You Dig, that too had a real, I know we're not really talking about that film, but I'd like to talk about it.
I love that movie. You could talk about it.
Well, like during that movie, I was going through a reproductive cancer. So I had endometrial cancer. So, so I had to, first I had a hysterectomy, you know, and then I was shooting the next day. Like there's a scene, you know, in The Deeper You Dig where, and so The Deeper You Dig is about a mother whose daughter goes missing, you know, and so there was a real parallel between what was happening with me and losing that part of my body, that female, you know, function, and this mother who loses her daughter. And so for me, it was an incredibly poignant experience. And then I had another surgery where I had to get rid of more, you know, ovaries and lymph and blah, blah, blah. And so I was just going, you know, being battered with things being taken from me, you know? And so I think it's really cool when you really can't, I mean, even though most people watching that film wouldn't know that stuff was happening, same thing in Hellbender. For me as a writer, it's so important for me. If I have that, I'm going to use it. It's just, even if nobody knows, it enriches, you know, the guts of your material. I mean, obviously you write, and I don't know. So I love that you brought up that. That means
well, also, I mean, the fact that we're talking about menstrual blood, which, by the way, no male reviewer ever does. I always bring it up because it's something that's very obvious. And if you know anything about witchcraft and different grimoires and spells, the most powerful spells are blood magic. And a lot of the powerful spells that use blood magic use menstrual blood. And a lot of people don't know that unless you're into the history of Wicca or history of witchcraft or the history of blood magic. You don't know that menstrual blood is considered more powerful than just regular old blood. So the fact that, you know, there's so much, and also I love in this movie that there's so many different forms of blood in this movie. So it's not just one, oh, that's bloody. Like you wear blood like war paint, which I also find fascinating because that is something that some covens do, but also some tribes have done. And historically is, you know, you have this thing of males going to hunt and then they become the man. But for women, when they menstruate, sometimes they would put a dot right here, menstrual blood, as a moment to show everyone in the village that they are now crossed over into womanhood. And it's just interesting to me, the use of blood between this mother and daughter. It's not just magic, but it's also revealing so much about their characters.
I am so with you. And when they're with their spells, like with the sigils that they put up into the air, basically like eyes, you know. Like Izzy, like her mother's never taught her to do that, but she innately knows, just like an animal in the forest knows how to, you know, I don't know, hunt or smell. And she innately knows to put her own blood to make the power, to make that magic happen. Like that's the that instigates the magic, when she spits on it.
I must think that moms watching this are probably trying to take notes of how they can do their own witchy CCTV and find out what their daughters are up to.
I used to love painting with my menstrual blood. There was a time in my early 20s when I loved it. And I liked giving it away as gifts and not telling people that I had my
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah, but anyway, that's why I like talking about these movies with other women, because we're not squeamish about it, and we could bring up these things that are obviously part of the movie and obviously part of the themes, and it's intriguing to me. That's why female filmmakers, when they put stuff like in this, in the past they would have never gotten away with it. Nobody would show it, but like we don't have to worry about theaters so much. It's like, with places like Shudder, and places that are streaming first-time horror filmmakers or even just indie filmmakers, that's where you get this like nuance and interesting stories that have never been told before, because they don't have to follow rules anymore. And I love that you guys don't do that. You don't follow rules. You just do what you like. And I think John had a quote that he said, a big part of this is it's fun. And if it wasn't fun, we wouldn't be doing it. And I love that quote. Yeah, it's great. You don't have to suffer for your art, people. You can also have fun.
Yeah.
Yep. That's our mantra.
When it came down to, I guess, like honing down the Hellbender like mythology and like what aspects of it, like was there something, or that you kind of drew from, or was it like kind of picking from different things, or like
we had so much fun coming up with the mythology. I did a lot of research on lore about women, of course, things like Lilith. I was really into Lamia, this Libyan serpent goddess. Kali the Destroyer, absolutely, with like men's skulls hanging off her belts and men legs coming out of her teeth. I mean, she's just the coolest. And those were just great ways, kind of things to jump off from. Basically, in essence, just being inspired by women, these legends of women who are unapologetic. All of those women just don't give two fucks. They are not going to apologize, which is something a lot of women, typically do. And not so. Yeah, that's how we came up with. We just decided this Hellbender would be. We only used the word witch once in the film. That was really important.
Yeah.
We knew people were going to market it and promote it as a witch film, but
I read a tagline and I was like, oh man, that's like not even remotely hitting the mark. Like, I think it was something really like literally half a sentence or something, which was essentially summing the whole film up with, a girl discovers witchcraft or something. It was like teenage girl discovers witchcraft.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God. I was like, no, like, because at the moment, obviously there's that resurgence with witchcraft coming up in films all over the place. So, I mean, I do respect, like, I respect that you chose to keep it sort of almost a separate thing, and not kind of focus in on the witch like word and stereotypes of that go with it.
She only uses the word once to throw a bone to the man, the ranger.
Yeah, exactly. Who's also quite daft, which I liked. I'm like, all the men who appear are quite daft and just not really, not of any interest, which I love.
John Adams. I mean, I'm assuming John plays the uncle, right? That you murdered.
Yeah.
It's interesting because he picks up on the symbols, though. He's showing her the sign, with the carving, the sticks. Like, he's knowing something's up, but the fact that he's like kind of intruding on Izzy's space, and Izzy's like doesn't know what to do because it's like this is the first time she's coming in contact with someone like this. And then, and I love, by the way, the moment where up at the top and then he turns around and then you're right next to him.
Yeah, you're like creeping hard.
But also, it also shows a little bit of your empathy because her character, the mother character, she had talked about, devouring children and devouring whatever. And so right before she decides to kill him, she asks if he's married or has children.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's a single dude, you're like, okay, fair game. But if he had children
Yeah.
or a wife,
Yeah.
he was like,
I was like, yeah, if you had said I have a young wife and kids, what would have happened then?
yeah. So I love the minute he says no, there's just some thing that
It's like,
switches, like you
what?
can see
That's
it in
him,
the
like-
eyes. Yeah.
It's like when the vampire says, you have to invite me in. It's like, you got no kids, you got no wife. Game time.
Sorry.
But also, I would say if I was a mom of a teenage daughter and some guy came out of nowhere and was like encroaching on her space, I would probably do the same thing. Not that I'm a man hater. It's just there's this vibe about him, and you don't know his backstory. You don't know if he's like a totally innocent dude, or maybe he does have some sort of lecherous ideas when he sees Izzy's character. Like, you don't know. That's why I keep watching this movie, because I'm wanting to see signs. Okay, what's that guy's backstory, and what's the sheriff's backstory? Does he know something that he's not revealing about the mom? And it's just because you've been alive for so long that someone in the store is like, weren't you the nurse to my grandmother? People are starting to recognize her, and it's like, well, maybe the sheriff has been warned about this. You don't know. And that's what I love about this movie. It's not spoon-fed to you. So you kind of have
got to figure it out.
Oh, that's cool.
Or it's left to the imagination,
Exactly.
to figure out what do you think it is and where it could go.
And that's great storytelling, because then you leave it up to the viewer to write fan fiction in their own brain. So they're like, oh, I want to know more about this character or this character or that character. And that's why you watch a movie multiple times, because you think you're going to get little nuggets that you didn't see before. And I love that, because it is one of those things where maybe he's not so innocent. Maybe he deserved to die.
And can you just say 97% on Rotten Tomatoes? Oh my goodness.
Bravo.
It's impossible. I mean,
Doesn't happen very often.
I mean, it just doesn't seem possible, but we're incredibly thankful. It's just crazy. It's
that's
crazy.
what you get when you don't follow the rules. That's what you get. You do something different than everything we've seen before. And it's not a trendy thing. You're doing what you think is a good story. You're not basing it off of anything else. You're not copying anybody. And that's why it resonates with so many people, different kinds of people, because it's such a unique and interesting movie that you can't predict what's going to happen next. And I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember watching, when I first watched it, and just being I was already entranced in what was going on. And then all of a sudden it started to take a turn, and I was like, get out. I've seen so many horror movies, very few can throw me for a loop, or I can't see something coming. And I'm and I was just the whole way through, I was just glued to it. And immediately, like I said, I the next day I said to my housemate, I was like, my God, you have to watch this film. I had no idea what I was going to be watching, and what I thought the film was going to be and what it was entirely different, and in the most brilliant way. And I was like, I can't explain this to you, but you need to just go and watch it. And then he watched it the next night and said exactly the same thing. And that's coming from a male's point of view. And he was like, I had no idea. And he was like, it was just brilliant. And he was, he as well is a huge fan of the music. So he'll be happy that I've got the vinyl coming. It'll be vinyl in the house. But yeah, it is. It's the whole journey that you're going on is like what a real journey would be, is it's uncharted. And so I feel like you did that with the film, in the sense that you're okay, I know where this is flowing, and then you're hang on, no, I don't. Whoa, no, we're going back this way now. And and that was, I think, one of the things that was so good about it, as well as how everything else aligned so well with it, is it just became, it wasn't a film that was it's just about we're gonna have a man hate, or we've got witchy stuff going on and this and that, puppies. We all love puppies. Yeah, and I there's a lot of films that have just been churned out with all of those things in mind, and I thought, when I first saw it, I thought this, I just had, when you get a feeling, an eerie feeling, and I thought, sometimes I can look at the art or like something to do with it, and I'll get like a feeling of like, this one's gonna have something, this is gonna be good. And then like I'll sit down and yeah, and I wasn't disappointed. And so I was, it immediately went to the list, and then I was like, all right, this is definitely going on, because it's just not like anything I've seen really at all, but especially in 2022, like there's just such a stickler for people sticking to formulas and not going rogue, or like not experimenting, and not doing those little things like you said, where you have fuck ups that then turn into brilliant mistakes, and I think that's the beauty of doing it DIY, is that you don't have all that financial stake and all that interference from other people telling you what, you can't muck this up, you need to do that scene again. And it's like you get to experience it as it's happening and adapt to the change.
You're so right. I mean, that kind of is us in a nutshell. A lot of our films just we just say we often find ourselves saying this film just wanted to be made, and it kept telling us where to go. It kept writing itself in a way. By not being too prepared, we were open to just seeing where it would naturally go. And that's just been helpful. I don't know if it'll work all the time, but in fact, when we finished Hellbender, we were like, God, I don't know if anyone is going to like this film.
What?
Yeah.
Isn't that what? That's a typical reaction, though, isn't it? Like,
Oh.
I feel like that's something that majority
of all of our films, really, because you're so protective. It's like your child, and you're like, well, what if I have an ugly child? I think it's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
because I feel like that it's funny that, like, because I feel like I know so many talented women who do so many different things, and that is a common theme in general, is that everyone, before something comes out, they're like, I don't know if anyone's going to get this. And, it's just going to be, and I feel like, is it just an innate thing, or is this like a patriarchal thing where
it might be? I don't think David Lynch has probably never said that in his life. That's
what I mean. Like, you don't sort of.
Same with John Waters, right? Like John Waters and David Lynch, two very different directors who are very polarizing to some people. I don't think in a second they've ever said, I don't think people get this. I worked at Lucasfilm. George Lucas was making a space movie that the actors didn't even understand. But he didn't say, I don't think anyone will get this. Yeah. So I think female filmmakers and writers and directors really need to stop apologizing, even though it's like pounded in us at a young age to apologize for everything. I want to thank my college roommate for making like a swear jar, but it was a sorry jar. It's like every time you say sorry, you have to put $1 in there, and that makes you very aware of how many times you say sorry. So like, I think for women, especially in a kind of an area where guys have been dominating, and even and I'm not just saying women, like, you have a lot of people in the queer community and trans community and stuff. It's like, just do it. Don't wait for them to be ready for you. Don't wait until it's trendy. Just fucking do whatever you want to do. And they have to catch up with you instead of you having to catch up with them. And that's why I love this movie. There's so much in folk horror that I love, stemming from Wicker Man to Blair Witch to, forest horror is one of my favorite things on earth. Midsummer is another example of that. But you did something so different. So different. And I was just like, okay, you're paving a new path that's never been done in folk horror before. And I love that you tried something that you loved and you made a new thing, which it's hard to do that in film, to make a new thing. And you did that. And I was just in awe. Like, I'm sorry, I'm such a fangirl for this.
I'm extending the love in. I just got a message on Instagram from Lulu with a huge thank you, love heart. It's all coming around.
I love you, Lulu.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Amazing. But yeah, no, I think it is. You don't see men apologizing. Even like whenever I put like a new piece of writing out, or when I put my new book out, I went, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to understand it. Like, it's going to be, and then one of my friends said to me, that's just like no one else says this. Like it's something, you know, like you need a, it's almost like a, you know, she's like trying to slap me in the face and be like, dudes don't do this. Dudes don't do this. They just put it out, and it's like, this is what it is. And it's like,
good to have that. Like, it's good to have that other voice. When I wrote Crafting with Feminism, that was coming out. That book was coming out during the Hillary Clinton Trump, you know, when they were running for president. And everyone's like, oh, it's going to do really well when Hillary's president. With Trump president, it did really, really well. And it was interesting because my publisher was like, and my publisher was Quirk Books, who in their name itself, they're quirky. But I had things like vagina tree ornaments. So they were ornaments for a Christmas tree that looked like vaginas that were made out of like dough. And I had a squeezable uterus that you can hug and put like a hot pad in. So when you have cramps, you hug your own uterus. Like, and I had people going, no one's going to get this. No one's going to like this. And it came out and people were like, holy crap, I've never seen a book with vagina ornaments before.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I just put it out. And I think you have to have that mental state of, I'm doing this because it's fun and it's awesome. And if people like it, great. If they don't, I don't care. And I think that's
the people who are going to get it. Like, they're the people you're aiming for, aren't you? Really? Yeah. So it's like the people who don't get it, you probably don't want them to be involved anyway. Yeah. Like, you know, they're not our kind. They're not our kind, as we like to say.
I love this conversation, and I feel like this is like almost exactly what I need right now, because I've been stuck on 3 different projects for the last like 3 years. I have a film project, a photography book, and a creative writing book, and I am just like stuck because I'm like, no one's gonna buy these things, no one's gonna like them. What if I'm gonna get judged by putting these out? And so I've just been like stuck on them, and now we're having this amazing conversation, and I feel like it's the universe just being like, stop it. Get out of your head and just put it the fuck out. Like,
do it. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like, it's a thing. It's like,
thank you for all of these words right now.
Yeah, it's very inspiring.
The thing is, it's like there's 4 of us here, and all of us have put stuff out or created stuff and put it into the world. We know we're all capable, strong women. So it's like, it's just, you need to smack yourself sometimes and be like, you know, like, no, like, you know, we are all more than capable, and we've shown so. So, you know, it's
and have done so much already, all of you. And there's something beautiful too about being human, and to say, oh my God, I don't, even though you've already done this, that, and that in 13 films, Jenna, that the fact that you can be human enough to say, God, I'm just like stuck, and then have people come along like us or you and say, oh no, you're great. We love you. You're doing great. Keep doing it. It's good to, it's nice to have, it's good to have support.
Yeah.
Female energy. It's also like, I feel like after, and we said this before you came on, Toby, that we started this podcast and this video show, and every time we're done with it, we text each other and instant message each other how happy we are that we got together once a month, because it feeds our creativity, but also it feeds our soul, so we don't feel alone. I think with COVID, especially, you're not around your people. You're not around the people that make you excited about your art, because everyone's isolated, and you just start feeling alone. Like, I have furniture that I have a skeleton and like a ventriloquist. So I don't feel, because I live alone. I don't even have pets. I have like 2 plants. So it's like, that's my group now. Like, I've been speaking out, like when I figure out murder mysteries to write for Hunt a Killer games, I actually read it out loud to my skeleton, because I just need to feel like I have a community. And so, like, having this type of community, and also I always tell to women and those who identify as women, or even just, if you're in a community that feels marginalized or feels like you're not getting support by the mainstream anything, you have each other. And that's what's so beautiful about this is, you have each other to build each other up, but to also encourage you and help you when you're down and help you when you're stuck, and let you know it's okay to have writer's block or imposter syndrome. Those things are real. And, that's why I love groups like this, and also talking to filmmakers like you, Toby, where we're like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like, this makes me feel like I'm old, and I was like, maybe I'm too old to do my own movie, like to direct or something, because I'm 50, and now I'm thinking, oh fuck no, I'm gonna do something because of this conversation alone. So
I've got some time. I mean, I live in Australia. There's plenty of creepy ass places in Australia that I can drive through. Let me tell you.
Yeah, there's also like LA. I mean, LA is its own horror film. I think, as you know, you lived here, Toby, but like it's just there. But there's secret places. There's secret tunnels. There's secret areas. There's just all these creepy places you can film. But also LA's full of horror stories too. So it's like that have not been told yet. So it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, how can I make LA work for me instead of me working for LA? Like that's why I love conversations like this, because I'm like, okay, maybe I can do it.
Oh, I'm gonna, like, when we're done, I'm gonna, you guys are, I only just met you today, but all three of you can be little like ghosts in my heart. Now. I feel really,
I feel like energized because I'm like, then that's sort of what this whole thing is about. Is it's about like sharing,
I love it.
things that we've seen, that we've loved, and then we talk about, and every time we come together, like I get something different from Jenna, like, and I get something different from Bonnie, and like we all pick up different things, and and then just then, and then on a personal note, like it's like, yeah, like Jenna, having issues with what you're doing, it's like, Jenna, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, you're amazing, what are you doing? Just do it.
It's a lot. I'm also going to graduate school right now, so I'm trying to juggle a lot.
You're doing a lot.
You do a lot of, you're like me, you do a lot at once.
Yeah.
Just pick one of them and then just zone in.
Yeah.
Well, I know you can do it. But also we know you can do it because you're super talented. You're just stuck in your own head. And I think that's something that a lot of women creators do. We have a lot more self-doubt built in. And not just women creators. Again, anyone who's in a marginal group that doesn't feel like they have the support from the film community or support from, the book community or play community or art community. That's why you have to find people like us that like build each other up and say, you can do it, because it's not just saying that. We believe it because we know how awesome you are, and we know how awesome all these women are that we're talking to. So it's, again, but I have self-doubt too. And let me tell you, imposter syndrome is strong with me. I have a writers group full of people that have movie deals. I don't have a movie deal, but I'm in this writers group because it's all different types of people. And I want to get their voice and understand where they're coming from, because it helps my writing. So like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we can do it. We just have to get out of our heads and not have this self-doubt, not have imposter syndrome, not have this, I have to wait for permission or wait till what I'm doing is trendy. I've missed so many trends I can't even count. Like I was doing YouTube videos before there was YouTube. So like now it's like
and that's one of the best things about this movie though, is that it didn't feel trendy. Like you were saying,
no, not at all.
Like
no, we created something.
The witch thing has become so trendy, but this wasn't like, this was like such a thing on its own. It was just such its own standalone art piece,
But I guarantee you,
of horror films and witch films that are coming out and all this stuff, and it just really stood out to me.
And I guarantee you, there's going to be movies that copy Hellbender, because Hellbender is different. So you're going to see these little Hellbenders popping up, doing stuff. I know I'm going to see movies where I'm like, they were inspired by Hellbender with this moment.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. It'll happen. I mean, come on, 97% for a horror movie. That's like,
And then of course, you get picked up by Shudder.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? Like, how did that happen? Like, and what was that like?
They're like, just so wonderful. Not only because they celebrate the film, but they really honor us and our identity as a family. Like, they like that, and they celebrate that. They don't really separate that from the film. And I think that's, I mean, I'd like the film to stand on its own, but we are a family that makes our films. So for me, they're just connected. So, and they're really into that.
Yeah. And they're also into diversity. Like if you, and this is not an ad for Shudder. I know Craig, who started Shudder. Craig was like, when I was at Lucasfilm, he was at Sci-Fi Channel. And then he moved over and did Shudder. And I was like, this is the perfect time to do something like this. Because again, we're all stuck in our homes too. And we need stuff to watch that inspire us. But also Shudder does something that a lot of streaming sites don't do, where they celebrate diversity. They celebrate different types of filmmakers, different voices, not just English stuff. There's stuff from all different countries and all different backgrounds. And so if you get like this whole amuse-bouche of different horror from different voices all over. And also they celebrate Argento. You know, Argento, they celebrate old movies, and they celebrate the stuff that we watched as kids, saying, oh, I want to do a Bella. Like, it's funny. Someone told me, I asked someone in my family, hey, what's a classic horror film to you? And they said Scream. And I was like, what? Which is a great movie. But for me, it's like, you know, Bela Lugosi movies and Christopher Lee movies. So, but Shudder plays those too. And I love that Shudder championed movies like yours, because it shows, if you really love filmmaking, there's so many different types of voices out there and different ways to make a horror film stand out. And I think that's one of the reasons I love Shudder, is I discover stuff I've never even knew existed.
Also, Shudder, one good thing about Shudder is it's not about churn.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, there won't be, it's not like any other streaming service where like every week you're getting gazillions of films and shows added. It's like Shudder is very selective.
Yeah.
It's not a really fast churn. So it's like they give people the space, and they give people's projects the actual platform and audience and time. It's not like, here it is, quick, get it in and out. Now we've got, you know, 10 more films for the next week. Like, they really, that's one thing I do like about Shudder, is they obviously have a good appreciation for what they're doing, because they're not in a hurry to like each week have a zillion new releases or like, you know, whatever all the time. But when I saw it, you know, obviously I saw like the thing, and then it was picked up by Shudder, and then I was like, amazing. Like, it's just, you know, it kind of puts it on, and, you know, it gets it out there to more people that, like, you know, probably may have found it harder to find the film.
And they're helping a lot of filmmakers make films.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're getting behind all kinds of filmmakers, which is really cool and important.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just glad that Shudder exists. I am glad that you exist, Toby, and your family exists. And thank you. I mean, again, having you on this, I hope I didn't come off too fangirly and weird, but I yay! I was just like, I was like Target lady, like Kristen Wiig Target lady the whole day. I was like, I was just so ready to talk to you, and so like had so many questions, so many.
I didn't even go. Look, I'll put it to you. I didn't even go out on Friday night, and I didn't even go out on Saturday night, because I was like, I've got Hellbender on Sunday. This shit's gotta be good. Like, I was like, you know, so I was like, I've been pumped for it all, like, as it's been coming. And
so much fun. Thank you. I hope I can talk to you again down the line. I want to like interview you guys.
Oh wow!
Anytime. It's just like, it's just been like, honestly, it's been amazing having you actually come on, and just being so amazingly open and just willing to come on and chat and stuff, and just, you know, I think, you know, you know, we love the films, we want to see more films, and it's just so great when you can actually connect with a director and someone who's involved in the industry, and they're just so welcoming and open, and, you know, not a giant douche or like whatever that could be, you know, like they're just, you know, like, and I knew that wasn't going to be you, of course, anyway. But, you know, it's just always just such a humble thing, and I think you've just put a big kick up my ass just to be like, do a whole bunch of other things like that I've been putting off, because now I'm like, well, Toby says.
Yeah,
I have a total crush on Mark Lanigan, and I saw he did the forward or intro to you.
Yeah, he wrote the forward. Yeah,
that.
Yeah. Maybe I can send you one. I'll send you one.
I'm gonna buy one because I want to support you. So
I know. I was just like thinking of all the things I'm going to send you a care package of all my books.
Yes. Mark was a really good friend of mine. So yeah, when I had this book sitting for quite a few years because of COVID, and I moved back from England to Australia, and I was about ready to sort of put it out, and it was probably a little before Christmas, and I spoke to Mark, and he was the first person who read it, actually. And I said, hey, I finished this, you know, blah, blah. And I sent it through to him to read. And he was like, I love it. Like, do you want me to put some words together? And I was like, do I? Like, I'm not going to say no. So, Yeah, and he literally he read it overnight, came back to me, and he was like, boom, with this huge thing, and I just like, I was like, oh, because he's been a hero of mine for a long time, and even though we've been friends, we had our friendship kind of happened later in life, so it was like, oh, really amazing. And then unfortunately, then I'd done everything and was ready and was like, oh, yep, getting ready. And then, of course, he passed away in Feb. So that kind of just went out the window I was like, I just can't even look at this thing now. Like, and then I just like, yeah, then I waited a little bit. And then, yeah, I kind of was like, you know what, this is for Mark. Mark was pushing me to do this, and he really wanted this to be out. And so I just sort of was like, this is for Mark. And so I added in like a little forward as well, like about Mark and the last time I saw him before he passed. And, and just like, yeah, it was amazing. And like, it still doesn't hit me right, but yeah, but I know that this was something that he really was proud of, and he was really excited about it. And so, yeah, Mark Lanigan feels.
I've got him. I mean,
Yay.
he's my favorite voice ever.
Oh, just such an amazing voice, and and it's just such an incredible human being. He's literally trudged through shit his entire life, and he used to always laugh about when his numbers up, and we never thought it was going to be up. We used to joke about it because he just, no matter the worst things would happen to him, and he'd always survive. Like, just prior, he had COVID and was in an induced coma. So the year prior, they told him be prepared, to his wife and him, to be prepared that he won't come through this. So it was just a real shock that it all happened, because he was better and well by the time that I spoke to him, and we were talking about the book. And yeah, that's life, I guess, but I know that he's that kind of person who would be like, Renee, fucking buck up, don't cry. Like, he'd be like, write a miserable song about it, or write a miserable poem about it, but don't sit and be miserable. Like, so yeah. But yeah, I can definitely hook you up with one of those. You please don't buy one.
Oh, thank you.
And also thank you for making Hellbender during COVID to show that even though at the worst of times, you could still have some creativity and you can still follow it. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know what was going to happen during COVID, if it was just going to wipe out all of humanity or what. And you guys are in your RV making a film. And that's great, because that like inspires you to like get out of yourself, get out of your stress, and put that into art.
Yeah, it was a great distraction for sure.
And I learned what the Catskills was.
Yeah,
In Australia, I'm like, what the fuck is the Catskills?
They're in all our movies.
Place?
The playground, our studio.
Yeah,
Ozzy.
don't be surprised if I move to your backyard.
Yeah, I'm like, what now?
We have lots of wood.
Well, before we go, does anyone, Bonnie, Jen, do you have a final question you want to ask? Anything?
No, I
on your? I know you have plethora of notes.
I do. Okay, light post, we cover. Oh, I know what I want to say. I love that you credit nature in the credits. You say thank you, nature, as part of the credits. People don't normally do that, and nature was a big part of this movie. And it's not really a question. I just wanted to say thank you for doing that, because nature was a big part of this movie, and nature never gets thanked in movies.
Mother Nature she's our lighting director, our favorite actress. Yeah, you got to thank her. I think in the new one, I just was working on the end credits for Where the Devil Roams, and I think I end it. First, I thank our dog, who has a cameo, who died while we were shooting. Sweet dog. And then I thank the clouds, because we're always waiting on clouds because we don't like to shoot in bright light. So we're always waiting. I think we got another 2 minutes, and then we're going to roll. Okay.
I love
And
I'm
Jenna?
just glad this just made my year. So thanks.
You three. I would love to stay in touch with you, and I hope that we can talk again.
I would
Yeah.
love
Oh,
that.
100%.
Keep making amazing movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Try.
can't wait to see the new stuff. Thank you for keeping that going. And your daughters are amazing. John's amazing. You're amazing. Everyone
I
in
just
this
want to be
project.
adopted, really. That's
No, you three, I could be saying the same about you three. You're all
I need a mum, so you know.
Well, I know. Just adopt us. We're available for adoption.
arms.
My parents won't
Yeah.
care. That's fine.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing about the new projects, and we'll have to get you back on,
I hope so.
obviously.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're, at a hit fest, so you're in your own time there. So I really appreciate that you took the time to come and chat with a bunch of crazy ladies.
Is there anything that you want to plug, or anything, websites you want to say, or anything like that?
Oh, we're just wonderwheelproductions.com for our film stuff. And then Hellbender, but the E's are sixes, hellbender.com,
Mhm.
the band. And all that music for Hellbender is on Spotify and Apple.
Yeah. And I found it sold out everywhere, the vinyl, except Music Direct. So if anybody out there wants to get it,
No, good. Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
I had to pre-order it. It was sold out everywhere. I was like,
I haven't seen it myself. I think when I get home, it'll be there.
yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah. So very exciting about that. And when can we expect some news of the short that's coming up?
Oh, the short that I'm in here in Telluride.
Mhm.
Oh, it's called Milltown. I don't know. This was just their world premiere today.
Oh wow! Congrats.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a good
That's
good short.
And not to peer pressure you, but I would really love to see an art of book of Hellbender and
Art of notes.
I write art of
No,
books
we're
for
just-
DreamWorks, and I'm like,
Need ideas for merch.
book.
I want to do a graphic novel. I'd like to.
Yes.
And
yes.
that'd be cool.
That might happen. I mean, I think that could happen one day.
Okay, cool. No pressure.
Awesome.
No, I'd like it.
Cool.
Yeah, and then we want to hear about Mom eating the town, and I'm putting my hand up to be eaten.
Yeah.
Don't.
Sequel or sequel. We'll
Careful
take
what
it
you
all.
wish for.
Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you three. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing evening.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.